understand why, because I can barely even remember the high tackle that he got pinged for. It was one where I think just an arm slapped a face. I don't even think it was a particularly brutal one. Nothing was flagged up about it in terms of it needing to be dealt with additionally on the field or by the video referee or anything at the time. And yet here he is now getting 2 matches because it was I think it's harsh to call any challenge frivolous when you're trying to make sure you don't miss playoff games, but without seeing the actual nuts and bolts of the details, I don't know why they've come to that situation of frivolous, but it didn't feel like a challenge that should be getting a ban for me.
Well, yet again, Leeds getting treated badly by the judiciary. We all know that happens every week.
Well, now they've moved to Manchester, the RFL. Obviously, they've dropped their Leeds bias that everyone used to think they had.
Yeah. They rolled the dice with trying to, because they know that the season might only be 1 week longer. So they rolled the dice, and it didn't come up for them, did it? So
no, it's a big miss because
they know the risk.
The biggest miss from this is it means he misses the chance to set a new Super League goal kicking streak record, doesn't it? Because he's equal Mason Leno's in this match, I think, if I'm right. I think, is it 32 consecutive or 34 consecutive? I can't remember the actual number.
No, it's something like 35, 36, something like that.
Yeah. And now, unless Leeds can win 2 playoff games, get to a grand final, and give him a chance at kicking a goal in that grand final, then that's put paid to that. And well, actually no, because it hangs over till next year, doesn't it? So it can still break it. It's just we have to wait until February.
Yeah. Well, as I say, you know that, particularly with their history this year, that it's a risk, and they may have felt it was a risk worth taking. As it turned out, it wasn't worth it. But what's he going to do? Yeah.
I wonder, because these frivolous decisions haven't been thrown around much recently. It happened more at the start of the year, and then they kind of stopped calling the challenges frivolous. I wonder why this one is. I wonder if the same judge has been sat on the panel each time that they've decided they've been frivolous, and he's just like basically got no truck with clubs coming and questioning shit. I don't know. It'd be an interesting one to go back and look at, maybe.
And it makes me wonder if the timing of it is playing into that decision making, in the sense of, i.e., challenging this because of the timing. Like, if this was mid-season, you wouldn't have challenged it, for example, and it's like you're challenging it on the basis of timing rather than on the fairness or unfairness of the decision.
If it's the incident, I think, was it on Alex Mellor?
I can't remember.
Who, by the way, I thought was very good in this game for Cass, actually. He was him and Kane Robb were probably their 2 best players for me.
But yeah, no, I remember the particular incident, so I can't comment on that. I'm just talking about the specifics of why it might be considered frivolous.
Yeah.
I.e., is the timing of the challenge, as in the challenging of the grading, rather than anything else particularly.
Yeah. Anyway, the game sees Leeds go into the playoffs and Castleford's season come to a halt. Cass Tigers forward Brad Martin has signed a new deal to remain with the Super League club for a further 2 years. I think he's made some decent progress this year, and so they've tied him down for a lengthier term. But unfortunate news for Leeds, Rowan Smith has confirmed that they will be without winger Ash Hanley for their trip to Perpignan after he picked up an ankle injury against Castleford. Of course, he was forced off at half-time in the game, which didn't help Leeds too. I'd say Ash Hanley's probably 5th when we're talking about wingers this year for me. I think the 4 we talked about before, Ash Hanley would be the next behind those 4 for me in Super League this year. Shame
but he's not getting on a plane, is he?
No. It's big blow, because I guess they'll be out Fuzzatua as well, because is he going to be back? I'm not sure, but that's both the first choice wingers. It's a good job they've got someone like Briscoe as a backup there, really, isn't it? Okay, that's the most consequential game done. We'll whiz through a couple of less consequential games again now. So the next game is another game where one of the sides decided to pick a few reserves and part-timers to play against a full-time side. Such was Salford's their dastardly plan to try and play at Huddersfield rather than Catalans has come off for them. They lost 14 points to 32 at home to Warrington, 14-8 to Wyre at half-time, so that would suggest Wyre were the better team throughout. 5,123 was the crowd. Robert Hicks was the referee. Incomplete stats because there was a couple of Salford players missing. One of the debutants and Tyler Dupree were missing.
Yep. But for Warrington, Greg Minikin with a try and 135 metres. George Williams with a try assist, 5 tackle busts, 128 metres and 5 offloads. For Salford, Rhys Williams with 130 metres.
And EFC78JU got in touch on this. We said, finally, we have turned it over at the final game of the season away from home to actually win for once, but still, hopefully, Powell just fucks off and puts himself down for the shit Helens job. We are supposed to be playoff teams and going far more than for what we did in the Challenge Cup. Brilliant performance with the tries on the interception game, but it's the same with conceding 11th place this year. It's gone tits up.
Well, on the positive side, at least David can go see Salford play. Because he said he would.
He did say he would.
He said he would, and he's no excuse now because it's in Huddersfield. So
that's a good point, and I think he's on next week now because I think that's the one he's had to swap, hasn't it? Because of the bombshell he dropped on me right at the end of last episode.
So you better be there. You better be there, David.
Yeah, and also, another good thing that we learned from this is what it took for Wyre to close out a game against a top 6 side, and it turns out playing against half a team of reserves.
Yes. What do we think about the
one
game?
Of Salford's reserve players that played in this game is a former all golds drug cheat who was banned for 4 years for banned substance use in his formative career, and he's bounced back and found a way back into rugby league and as a reserve grade player at Salford. So you got to credit his dedication there to do that and pick up that part-time role and stuff like that. So there were some people who got their chances who might have thought their chances had passed. They picked players who were 27 and 24 years old in their front row off the bench. It wasn't. It wasn't just kids, but it was part-timers.
What do we think about this Salford shenanigans?
I think it's very much the same as what Catalans chose to do. I think it's a bit silly to suggest that they threw the game because they picked this squad before they knew that Huddersfield would win for a start. And they picked this, although they would have known what Catalan's squad had been picked, wouldn't they? So they would have expected Catalans to lose. I just think what they've done, really, is they've given some game time to some fringe players and then supplemented that with four part-time players. But the fringe players needed game time in case they are needed if injuries pop up in the playoffs. And they've had a very consistent team selection, especially in the centres, the second row, and the spine. So I think they did need to get this game time into some of those guys, and I think it's a sensible thing for them to do. Picking the 4 debutants maybe is the part that's questionable.
Yeah, I completely understand why they did it. They're effectively having, both them and Catalan have had their week off in quotation marks just a week early, haven't they?
Yeah.
Kind of preparing for the playoffs, and I didn't really have an issue with Catalan doing it. It's a shame for Sky and all that, but I don't have an issue with Salford doing it either, in the sense of I understand why you do it to manage the workload on your players, even though it doesn't help the show. I understand why you did it.
Yeah, and there's not much to read into it from Salford's point of view in this game. I don't know how much we read in from Warrington's point of view as well, but George Williams does look in good form. It's clearly got some new combinations that are working on that left edge. If you watch the highlights, you'll see that popping up. He was very involved. He created chances. He finished off one as well. We need that, especially if Johnny Lomax is crocked. We need George Williams to be in form, and I think since that England international, he has been in form, just in a side that hasn't necessarily performed around him. But I'm not worried about George Williams' form going into the World Cup as much as I was in June.
No, I would agree with that. I think he's been better now that they've clarified, when they clarified the Widdop situation, that kind of thing. I think it's definitely improved him. I'd have no question about him being in the halves for England.
Okay, final game to talk about. St Helens lifting the League Leaders Shield in front of their home crowd. Played Toulouse, already relegated. The referee was a Mr. Smale. New one on me.
Me too.
The score was 36-16. It was 12-10 at half-time, so Toulouse did what they've done a lot of times this year and kept it close. They scored the first try, kept it close in the first half, but then Saints rose to prominence in the second half. Impressive crowd, 13,112 there to, I guess, in part watch the League Leaders Shield being lifted, but they're another side that have done good work to make sure they got good crowds when, bringing initiatives along and that sort of stuff to get good crowds when they've got the French teams in town. So well done to the St Helens Club there. Saints won on all the key stats across the board other than errors. Without 5 more errors, it probably would have been a bigger home win.
Indeed. For Saints, it was Curtis Sirenen with a try, 153 metres. Connie Harrell with a try, 6 tackle busts and 137 metres. John Bennison with 127 metres. And Matty Lees with a try assist, 40 tackles and 5 tackle busts. For Toulouse, Ilias Bergal with a try and 143 metres. And Ollie Asholbot with 116 metres and 3 offloads.
At Mike Webb 58 said, dour 60 minutes until the goat appeared and then the champions burst into life. Highlight being Matty Lee's relief at avoiding the nudie run. It was a decent try actually, wasn't it? After match presentation handled well with all the academy lads fully involved. Lovely touch from the Toulouse and Saints Islanders. Hacker to mark Joseph Paolo's retirement. Toulouse went out with class.
And looking at it, I'm assuming this is from David.
I think it's from David, but he put St Helens as his name rather than St David.
But yes, I'm going to assume it is just from the format.
I didn't bother checking with him because I wanted to bring this up on the show.
So scratchy and half-paced, but we got there in the end. Lees was excellent in this one.
Hope to God.
Hope to God.
There are no more
injuries or random Cullen bans. No, Cullen is banning Leeds players this week. Maybe he's had a drink when he submitted this one. It won't surprise me. Sorry to see Toulouse go down. Catch you down the road, guys. Bring on a semi. Onwards.
Which is what gave it away.
Yes.
Obviously, I've only seen the highlights from this game. It wasn't a game that I went to or anything like that, but I'm guessing from what I did see that Saints will be much happier with their play with the ball than their play without the ball in this game, because they did concede a couple of soft-looking tries, and one was a very easy charge down on a Jack Wellsby kick. There was a dummy half barge over, that sort of stuff. But they scored some good tries. They scored some long-range tries, Saints did, in this game. Not huge amount of obstacle at times from a very, gappy Toulouse defence. But the Sirenen try, I thought that was an interesting try. If people haven't seen it, he kind of ran a line back into the middle of the pitch, but I don't think the pass was necessarily for him, but he just grabbed it anyway. And because everyone was looking at the pass being out the back, but he just popped up and grabbed it. He was running a really strong line. He had a really good line back on the inside. Gap really opened up for him. The Lees try that was mentioned in getting off the nudie run, well, that was a really good off the cuff team score that involved all the key men. Roby and Lomax were in there and mix and stuff. And then Lees finished it off. And Conrad Hurrell scored a try where he kicked it for himself and he just got it down before the dead ball line. So some good scores by Saints in this game.
Yeah, I think they'll be happy with that. I mean, they did go behind. Toulouse were in front at one point. So they're not going to be delighted with that. This isn't vintage St Helens yet, is it? I think it'll be interesting to see what happens come the semi-finals. But I think they're getting better, but they're not quite where they might want to be for me.
Well, yeah, there's a few injury doubts as well. Percival, we still don't really